Today, we're very happy to have four athletes that have been very successful at UTS. We have Sam Swadron from the wrestling team, Harry Arisabizi from the swim team, Meredith Gladish from the snowboard team, although she also participated on the volleyball team, and Ezra Moose for the boys varsity basketball team, and he also played badminton as well. Joining us will be the head of student life, Mr. Gary Kollins, and we're going to talk to each one of them to find out a little bit more about their athletic involvement at UTS and outside of UTS in some cases. Sam, you have wrestled at UTS since M3, and I believe you've been at OFSA every year. Wrestling is a sport that everyone knows practices very hard in the morning. It's a season that also is compiled of a number of one-day tournaments across Southern Ontario. Sam, give us a few highlights of your wrestling seasons over the years, and what motivated you to wrestle for all those years?
The first time I won a match, which would be important to me because it was not my first match, not even close. It must have been my 6th or 7th match.
Sorry, Sam, was that your first season?
Yeah, it takes a while, especially not coming from a significant athletic background previously. So that was a big moment for me. And then another highlight, I would say, from my first season would be when we had a dual meet at UTS. And because I was the biggest guy on our team, I had to wrestle someone who was about 15 kilos heavier.
Wow.
Just because so that he'd have a match. And another rule that Mr. Chiavallo had made, Coach Chiavallo, that he had the captain sort out was that everyone had to wrestle at least twice to have like a decent experience. So that meant that because I was the only person that could wrestle that guy, I had to wrestle him twice. So first match did not go well. I think I got beaten by technical superiority, 11-0, which is a bad loss in wrestling. But then actually, after about an hour, we wrestled again. And since we were both new to it, it wasn't like there was a significant skill gap. It was mostly a weight thing. So the second match that we had, I actually took the victory 7-5.
Wow.
So that was something I was proud of then. My second season, I am proud of the first tournament that I ended up winning and the first OFSA that I ended up making, as I didn't go in my first year, but I went after that. S5 was actually my best OFSA finish, so I'm pretty happy with that. S6, while I didn't technically perform as well on paper, I had a really good time sort of in the leadership role, helping other people get better and develop. The thing about wrestling is it's not a common sport, so most people start in high school. So the thing with that is if you put in the work in high school, you can have a really fulfilling career versus other sports where a lot of people start when they're 6. So because I started kind of late with my athletic development, that ended up being really true for me. And I ended up having a career worthy of talking about it here today.
That's great. Yeah. And actually, that's a good point. Wrestling is a sport in Canada that seems to start at grade 9. So it is one, if you haven't done anything before, you can really catch up. Now, this year you had a bit of challenges with Mr. Chiavallo being off for about 2 or 3 months there. And for a while, we weren't sure if the wrestling program was going to hang on. But as you said, you really took on a leadership role. And what did that role mean for you? How did your role change at all when we were faced with that adversity?
So I'd actually like to give a shout out to Ilya, or Coach Cranen, because he was an alumnus who took on the role of like interim head coach. And while it's a really, really large gap that's left by Coach Chiavallo when he had his unfortunate absence, Ilya made it pretty easy on the team to still stay enthusiastic, still continue to work hard, continue to improve and grow as athletes and wrestlers. Because that was Ilya's thing. He always talked about how over the course of his high school career, he didn't start out an athletic person, but he had an insane work ethic with his cross country and running, wrestling, and all the other sports he did. And he was able to impart that upon us to continue keeping at it while coach was gone.
Harry comes from the swimming background. He started swimming at a young age. Can you talk briefly a little bit about the training that went into your preparation as a swimmer, how it compares to the hard work that Sam and the wrestling team has put forth?
Yeah, at the start, as Sam said, it's a bit different for swimming. Many people start very young. I started late comparatively to many others, around when I was about 9 or 10. So around grade 5 or so. My progress lasted until F1 was my last year of swimming competitively outside of school. Then I took a 2-year break. And back then, at UTS, swimming only started in M3, really. So I joined the swim team in M3, and at that point, I was just a junior swimmer. I wasn't considered a competitive swimmer since I'd been out of the sport for 2 years. It was, UTS was super supportive, and the swim team was great, a lot of mentorship going on. Also was a great experience. There I won the gold in the 50 free and the silver in the 100 free. And that actually was one of the main factors that made me return to swimming competitively outside of school. And I joined Crest Swim Club because of that. Swimming, like wrestling, a lot of hard work. It's a lot more, every day you go and it's monotonous in my experience, the practices, but finding your own purpose for doing it is important, just like any other sport. My reasons to go back into swimming were mainly the building the community, the fun, the exercise, and just a thrill of competition. And so that has lasted me until this point. I'm still swimming competitively outside of school and with UTS, especially UTS. As Sam said, in the senior years, you transition to, or you have the potential to transition into a leadership role, which I embraced. I thought that was great. As a sort of a team leader in both practices and meets, mentoring the younger kids as I was mentored, it builds the community and a sense of pride and passion in the sport that you're doing. And that in turn helps all other aspects of life by just keeping a healthy body, healthy mind, and something to connect with.
Harry, what would be some of the differences between when you were involved in a community swim team versus the school swim team at UTS?
Okay, so outside of school, the competitive scene is practices are every day, often twice a day. So you get about 8 or 9 practices a week, ideally. It is different in school, as the practices are still rigorous, but they're shorter, and the feeling is a little different. It's a lot more tight-knit outside, just because you see each other more often, and it's more, I would say, serious and rigid discipline, just every day in and out, while in UTS, it's more building community by teaching each other, because everyone is at different levels at UTS in the swim team. So those who are more experienced often provide some advice or work with those who maybe don't swim competitively or are just beginning the sport or training recreationally. But it's more of a supportive environment that is meant to build character and build a community inside UTS.
Meredith, can you talk a little bit about your snowboarding background and what it meant to participate wearing the UTS uniform and participating at OFSA? And it's a sport that I know a lot of people do not participate in. So maybe you want to give us a little background of the sport and how it felt to wear the UTS uniform at OFSA.
I actually started snowboarding when I was in grade 4, and I've continued it since then, like outside of school. Like joining UTS, the snowboarding team, it was honestly just something that I thought I'd really enjoy, because at my ski club, we had house league races that I participated in. So I sort of had like my own fun experience sort of racing and trying it out. And I found it really exciting. So I thought like this would be a good opportunity. Because as well, like my sister had also done snowboarding at OFSA at her school. and she said that it was really fun. So that's kind of like where I wanted to do it. Yeah.
Right, and just to highlight too, Meredith, you were ninth at OFSA in the girls' high school division of the snowboard, and you were first at the TDCAA's in snowboarding as well. And what I noticed about your OFSA times for the two runs, almost identical. So explain how that felt.
That was honestly pretty surprising for me because on my first run, I actually slipped because it was the weather wasn't great, so I slipped on my run. But I think I found I was more prepared and like ready to do the second run because I think it was not only on an easier slope, but I also got to do some extra runs in between.
Wow, great. And actually, when I looked at the results, I saw that it was very close, your time between third place and yourself, too. So it must have been a pretty exciting day. Ezra, if we can bring you into the discussion here as well. Ezra, I remember you in M3 trying out for the varsity team. The team had some success, but worked very hard. But your role from M3 through S6 really changed a lot. Last year, playing junior, taking a leadership role, and probably, in my mind, one of the stars in the league. And then you continued that this year in senior. Tell us about your early beginnings in high school basketball and how you were able to improve to the level that you're at now in S6.
In grade 9, it wasn't only my start to high school basketball, it was really my start to basketball in general, which is pretty funny. But essentially, I came as a new student in an M3 to UTS, and I kind of stumbled into the gym at lunchtime without much else to do, really, kind of being new and trying to find my way around. And Coach Watson, Newton, me and him really connected, and it kind of inspired me to continue playing basketball. And I ended up trying out for the team. I joined the team a little late that year, and I didn't play very much. I would usually get in kind of the last 2 minutes maybe, and I actually scored one basket that entire season. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a little elbow jumper. Yeah, I mean, the team, like you said, didn't have a ton of success that year, but it was still a great experience for me. And that summer, I kind of took it upon myself, like this was something I really wanted to get better at. So I would just go to my local park kind of every day and shoot a few shots. And then I started to kind of see the success that came with that. Just that little bit of work I had done in the summer really paid off the next year in grade 10. And that's when things kind of started to take off, where I realized this was an activity where if I put the work in, you could really easily see the benefit of that. So I felt like that year I kind of just took it to another level. And then I came back in grade 11 and 12. I averaged over 30 points a game both those seasons. I think we had success relative to what UTS basketball was doing before. I mean, we didn't make OFSA, but we definitely gave some teams a run in the playoffs. And it's been a great experience. I mean, I feel like UTS basketball has really given me, like Sam and Harry said, an opportunity to kind of step into a leadership role. I've really enjoyed my time mentoring younger kids, even kids who aren't on the varsity team. But I think, as you and Mr. Kollins have seen, basketball in the foundation grades has really grown over the past 4 years. And that's something I know Newton is really proud of, but it's also something I'm proud of because I feel like I've contributed to the UTS community in a way by giving these new students kind of an outlet like I had at the school.
I think it's a fascinating story. One, you started in grade 9 and by grade 12 you're scoring 30 points a game. Like it's an incredible story, actually. And you touched on it a little bit, the work you put in. Like, I've been at UTS for 13 years, and I don't think I've seen an athlete in our school come into the gym as much as you have to work on your game. Like, I don't think people realize the work you actually put in to get to where you're at. It's quite something. I mean, a lot of kids come in, they have some of the rep experience, the club experience, the outside experience. I mean, you're homegrown, really. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, UTS was really where my basketball started. I only started playing club last year, pretty much. But yeah, I mean, I'm not one to really like talk about any of my accomplishments, really. I feel like I'm generally a pretty humble person. For me, it wasn't necessarily a struggle to invest that time. I mean, of course, there are days where I didn't feel like playing basketball or didn't feel like, I don't know, getting to the weight room. But honestly, at the start, it was just born out of an actual enjoyment and kind of love to play basketball. I just love to do it. So that's what kind of it led naturally. It wasn't like my parents kind of put me into the sport when I was 6 years old. But I kind of just came upon it naturally and stuck to it. So yeah, like you said, I mean, I'm in the gym a lot at UTS, which is definitely. I mean, there's not a lot of other people that are always putting up shots. It always coincides with my schoolwork, though. My parents always make sure that there's no basketball if my grades don't stay high. But yeah, every free moment I've had over the past 3 years, past 4 years, pretty much, I've been in the gym. I've been now on the stage, kind of getting some work in. And I guess giving advice to younger students who are trying to improve at whatever sport they're playing would just be invest all the time you possibly can into it, whether that's 20 minutes at lunch or an hour during your spare, whatever time you're not putting in, someone else somewhere is, I feel like. So that's kind of always at the back of my head. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's personally paid off, but I just really love to play basketball. So
Actually, with that last comment, I'd like to ask all of you, extend that comment about academics and athletics. And all of you have had a lot of success in your sports, and they've been sports that have required a lot of time commitment. How have you been able to balance that rigorous academic demand of UTS with the demands of your sport as well?
For me, at least, it was a lot of trial and error. I realized after my first calculus test of the year that I was not able to volunteer in my wrestling club the night before.
Okay.
So things like that. I ended up having to balance it, doing essentially what Ezra said, putting in as much time as I could, but then realizing that a big amount of time does have to go into schoolwork if I want it to go my way. So a lot of times at UTS, that does mean putting academics first just because of the nature of the school. But at the very least, I kind of get athletics as sort of a break from that.
I think whatever sport you're involved in, it teaches you a lot of important things like discipline and punctuality and seeking support when you need it. And in turn, you can apply those things to academics, doing your homework on time and organizing yourself, especially, and organizing your energy, and in balancing school and sports with whatever way suits you. Usually in form of setting yourself a routine, which can last through the years, helps you find time management and other balance in other areas of life, especially as you transition to university. So you find your own way, but routine is always going to be in there.
Excellent. And Meredith, you've involved yourself in both volleyball and the snowboarding. How have you been able to balance the academics at UTS with your athletics?
Honestly, for me, a lot of me balancing it has been helped by the support of my friends. Like, even though they don't help me with my homework per se, but if I have like questions or stuff, I know that I can talk to them, and that if I feel like I'm really stressed because of all the things that I do for my extracurriculars and school, that they'll be there to sort of talk me through it and, like, I guess, make me feel better about everything that I have on my plate. So yeah.
Very good. And Ezra, with your basketball season, which not many people know, you guys played every game away. That's for 2 years, so a lot of travel time. And then you played some community basketball as well. How are you able to balance successfully both?
I feel like I've been able to successfully balance athletics with academics just by a matter of kind of focusing in on those two things. So I feel like, yes, I kind of have had to sacrifice a bit of my kind of free time, but that would usually be free time spent kind of on my phone or watching Netflix or doing whatever. So I feel like instead of sacrificing any time I put into my basketball or my academics, I've just cut out other portions of my time I spend doing things not as productive. And second, the other thing that's really helped me is just the understanding of UTS teachers. I know UTS has this kind of reputation of being, oh, it's so competitive, whatever. But honestly, the teachers are really understanding when it comes to time management, any type of way you're using your time, whether that be for athletics, whether that be for taking a family trip, anything really. They're really great about being understanding. So there's many times I've had to tell them, like, I'm sorry, I was at a basketball tournament all weekend, or I was up late last night at a basketball game far from the city that I was traveling to and from, and I wasn't able to get this homework assignment done. Could I please have just a few extra hours or another day? And in my experience, they've been more than understanding in all of those instances.
I'm curious to know what people are doing beyond UTS as they move away and graduate from the school, and how they're going to keep up with their sport and maintain and stay involved. So can the graduates speak to that? And then Meredith, maybe you want to speak to how you're going to stay involved moving forward at UTS.
For myself, I will be attending U of T next year, and I actually had several opportunities at the wrestling club I train at to be in contact with the coaches there, because they also have an agreement with my club as like an extra training facility. So I've gotten to meet their athletes and their coaches and stuff, because they'll come to our open practices. I'm familiar with the team, and I think it would be a really good thing for me to pursue joining
That's
it.
great. Mm-hmm.
And as it stands right now, I don't think I'd be the number one guy at my weight, whichever weight that ends up being, and depending on whether athletics happen in first year or whether it'll have to be in second year. But I'll still be able to train with them with the goal of being able to compete for them at, I guess, OUAs, and if it goes well, U Sport.
And a shout out to your club too, because when we went through that issue with Mr. Chiavello being off, they offered us to go down to their place and practice. So really appreciated that from your club.
I'm going to the University of Guelph next year for animal biology, and so far, because of COVID and all that, it's been a lot of plans have been put off, and decisions, especially considering university sports. I had strong plans to join the swim team, and I was in contact with Miss Payne, the coach of Guelph, but this whole pandemic issue has put, I'm sure, every sport at every university's plans in sort of disarray. But I'm hopeful for the future. I am quite intent on joining either the university team or some other team. I believe when you do sports in high school and outside of school, it really becomes a part of you. So you don't want to let it go easily. You see the benefits. And yeah, hopefully I can continue with that, see what the future brings.
Go Griffins.
Oh boy.
University of Guelph, my alma mater. Go Griffins. Good choice, Eric.
This year I had offers to play at the University of Toronto, at McGill, and at various academic D3 schools in the States, like MIT and the University of Chicago. Some of my opportunities in the States didn't actually end up working out. So I was looking at U of T and McGill. And not very many people know this, but I'm actually born in 2003. So I'm a year behind the rest of my graduating class, which hasn't really affected me in the classroom, but basketball-wise, a lot of graduates are kind of bigger, stronger, have been playing the game 1 year longer. So it kind of put me at a disadvantage. Also, just coming from Canada, I was kind of looking to go to the States. And of course, they're more familiar with the schools they have there. So I've decided to accept my offer of admission at U of T, but defer it 1 year. And I'm going to be heading up to Western Massachusetts next year to take a post-grad year at a basketball prep school there. And I mean, I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a great opportunity. I've already had a chance to work out with them a lot over Zoom now because of the situation. It's not quite sure what next year may look like. Luckily, Western Massachusetts specifically hasn't been hit too hard by the coronavirus. So they say they're committed to opening up in September. But of course, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, I think this was kind of the best opportunity the best option for me to kind of get another year of development under my belt so that I can have the most opportunities and kind of no regrets going into university, wherever that may be next year.
That's amazing. And Meredith, how about your snowboarding career? Will that continue?
Probably, yeah. Or I might try skiing next year. I haven't really decided. I kind of just play it by like ear, I guess. So I like to try a lot of different things. So we'll see how it goes. But I'll likely be doing some kind of alpine sport next year.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Mr. Bryce, who's behind the scenes. And good luck to all on your exams. And we'll be talking before it's over.